Today, I have Anastasia Fazal with me from the project Luminous Raw. And Anastasia is a regenerative detoxification specialist and a holistic health consultant. I discovered your YouTube channel, Anastasia, probably 2 years ago when I was scrolling through the comment section of another channel talking about food forest, and I think you left a comment there, and that's how I went to your YouTube channel and found your videos and followed you since then. I think you started your YouTube channel 3 years ago, and you documented also a lot your juicing experiences. And I thank you for being here with me. I'm really delighted to create this moment with you. And maybe to start things with, I would like to maybe open the space for you to talk about your background growing up, and maybe also especially with a focus maybe on food and the relationship you had with food at that time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ariana, for having me. It's a pleasure to talk with you today. I grew up in a very big city, and I also grew up in the village at the same time. So I think that's a very important aspect of my childhood that played tremendous role in who I am right now. So I was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. It's 6 million people city, and it's pretty intense, pretty dense, a lot of energy. And my paternal grandfather was a registered nurse, so I was heavily exposed to the Western way of medicine. And on the other side, I had my maternal grandparents who lived in Belarus, and they had a house in the village, and I would stay in the summertime with them. And so my grandfather would teach me herbalism because he was a professional herbalist. He would teach me how to grow food. He had his own land. He would teach me how to forage mushrooms and harvest wild plants. And so my childhood was really filled with these two experiences, which were very different. And I would say I mostly felt myself at home when I was in the land, in the forest, in nature. And then I had to return back to the city. And of course, again, there was different food, different activities, different habits. And so I would spend my school time at home with my parents. And of course, the relationship with food was just like, I think we all, most of us at least, grew up being told that what we're supposed to eat, how we're supposed to eat it, how many times a day. And I remember myself that I disliked certain foods so much that I just couldn't stand them, and I was forced to eat them. I especially remember one of the experiences in my kindergarten when they forced me to eat boiled fish with boiled egg, and it was just a very weird mixture of those two things. And I was 3 years old, and I remember I was just gagging and couldn't take that food, and yet teachers forced me to eat that food. And so many times experiencing those things growing up, I think I really forgot the way my body was truly designed and what I was supposed to eat, except for when, again, I would go to the village. I would have all the fresh fruit from straight from the land, from a tree, a lot of fruit. My grandfather would make amazing salads every day, different kind of salads, fresh. And I also would notice that I would feel much better. You know, my body would feel more elevated, and I would feel more strong. Of course, running around outside in the sunlight, absorbing all that energy, I would come back to the city and all over again. And so I started getting sick very early in life. I was born a very healthy child, and then after regular procedures that doctors do to children, I started getting sick. And my mom was puzzled. She didn't know what to do. So with time, I developed chronic bronchitis and a lot of inflammation in my nose and my ears, ear infections, frequent colds, flus. And as everyone thought, my immune system was very weak. So I was put on different kind of medications. And with time, as I was growing up, I just developed more and more chronic diseases. And it was really confusing to me because I also was a gymnast and I loved being in my body. I loved practicing. So it's a really strenuous training, self-discipline, everything put into practice. You know, I did not negotiate my training time. I would show up no matter what, no matter how I felt, no matter what kind of pain I had in my body. So I really pushed through it. And I was doing it since I was 6 years old, all the way until 15. So at this time, I was kind of gathering my strength and power despite what was going on with me and my body. And somehow, because my grandmother was a nurse, I developed this idea that it's okay to be sick. It's kind of fine to feel like that. It's normal. And at the same time, I knew, my spirit knew, my soul knew that there was something much bigger for us to experience. And I always had a question, why people get sick? What is going on? How did we get to this point that there are so many hospitals, so many clinics, and yet people continuously getting sick? How come we cannot figure out what is going on? So I think that's overall background of my childhood.
What kind of diet were you being fed with, and when did you start maybe to modify your food habits?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was fed the regular diet. I would say standard American diet would sound close to it, or Russian standard diet. So it's basically a lot of potatoes, a lot of rice, beans, soups, a lot of meat. So every meal had a meat in it, mostly, a lot of fat, a lot of mayonnaise. So really things like oatmeal for breakfast, different kind of porridges for breakfast, eggs, milk, ice creams, all sorts of dairy, cheeses. So my diet was, I have tried everything, I guess, in this life. So that was my main diet all the way until I changed it completely in 2015. But modifying my habits, I started pretty early in life. I was very aware. I was growing up with this bright spirit who was so curious to learn and to know the truth and to just be here and be present and do its best to recognize who I was. You know, I was searching for myself. I was searching who I was, and I always had a lot of questions. And one of those questions was, as I said, why do people get sick? I started working at a clinic in Russia back when I was 15 years old. So I was in high school at that time and I needed some extra money. So I started working there first as a janitor. And so I would take all the medical books and I would sit and read them on my break time. And I would go through all of the diseases. And I cannot tell you how many of those books I read, because I ended up working in that clinic for 6 years. So the first year I worked as a janitor, and then I got to statistic department, where I had to put in the data in the computer. Basically, every day I would get a pile of paperwork with the patient's name and their disease. And that was my job, to just keep track of those things. And then the questions started arising even more. So I started seeing the parallel in like certain ages and certain diseases. And I was questioning even deeper, like how come there is no understanding what causes all of those things. So we have so many people coming through the clinic every single day, and yet all we do is just we give them medications and we let them go and they come back. So there was a certain trait in this process that coming back of the patient with worse results, even with worse health outcomes than what was expected. And meanwhile, I myself was going through the same things. So I had stomach issues, digestive issues. I continued having colds and flus. And slowly but surely, I became more and more depressed because of those issues. Imagine you are growing up, and as a teenager, you're going not only through your own developmental processes, but also you have to battle through multiple diseases and you don't even understand why you have them. So for me, there was a lot of questioning, and I started modifying my diet when I noticed that by the time I turned 21, I started gaining weight. And I already stopped practicing gymnastics because I had severe pain all over my body, basically already manifesting rheumatoid arthritis, but I was not diagnosed with it yet. And when I started gaining weight, I started questioning again. So why is it happening with me? What is going on? And I started reading every single label in the grocery store. So I became really, really aware of what I was putting in my body. And when I would read something that I would not understand, I would tell myself I was not supposed to eat that. Of course, I still ate meat and dairy and eggs and a lot of food. And yet I was slowly cutting off things that I felt were not serving me anymore.
With what did you start to cut? Like was it gluten first, or was it meat, or
First it was Coca-Cola. Honestly, it was Coca-Cola. I was like, why am I putting something in my body that is so empty and it's just sugar? And so I cut all the soda drinks that I was consuming at that time, and I lost like 10 pounds instantly. It was within 2 weeks, it was just gone. And so from that point on, I just would be mindful of buying processed food. Like, let's say if there was some processed food with unknown chemicals, I would just not purchase it. But then again, I was taking so many medications that I think it numbed my consciousness, it numbed my body sensations, and it made harder to recognize my own body signals and really understand what is good for my body, what is not. And I kind of continued going on this train of a habit of eating whatever I was taught to eat in childhood, all the way until my child was born in 2015. So that was the pivotal moment in my journey when everything changed. And yeah, before that, it was just slowly trying to eat as natural and as clean as I possibly could understand at that time, with that consciousness that I had.
Yeah. Food, there is a lot of work deprogram with food, and it cannot be done over a year. It's like a process that goes hand in hand with the journey. And so what about the medication? Were they suggested by the medical field first, probably the first one? And because I read that you up to a certain point you were reliant on different kind of medication, and then with the journey you transformed that. So I was wondering how did it get started?
Yeah, so medications was something very common in my family. So everyone was taking medications. It was just what people did, right? And my grandmother, who was a nurse, she would just give out medications left and right to people and said that's what we do when we get sick. And so for me, it was kind of normal to try to fix my body issues with the medications. And with time, the amount of medications increased exponentially. So if before I would take just cold and flu medications, and then I had a very severe ear infection that put me to the hospital for 2 months at the age of 13. So I almost died from the medications that I was prescribed. So I had hallucinations and I had like very weird things going on with my body until I started just, flushing those medications down the drain because I figured out that they were not helping me and they were just making things worse. And yet, that was something that everyone did around me, and I was doing the same thing. And I was going to the doctors and asking what kind of medications would help me with this issue and with that issue. And like a good student, I would do the thing that teacher would tell me, right? I would just take those medications. And by the time I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which was at the age of 26, they finally realized what was happening with me. So I really had a lot of joint issues and swollen joints, a lot of inflammation, chronic fatigue, migraines, a lot of things that were just preventing me from my regular lifestyle. And when I was diagnosed, they prescribed me cancer medications. They prescribed me steroids. I also was very, very depressed from what was going on. So they prescribed me heavy antidepressants. I had complex PTSD as well. So I was on different psychotic medications, I would say psychiatry medications. And it was very heavy. So by the time I quit all the medications, I was on total of 17 different pharmaceutical drugs. And looking back now, I sometimes just feel so grateful and also feel shocked that how much this body could take it and how miraculous this organism is that it was able to clear it all out, at least most of it out, and still thrive and get back and heal itself. That is, to me personally, that's the most miraculous thing. It's a poison. It's pure poison. It destroys everything within you. It destroys. It's so acidic. My hair, almost all of my hair was gone. I lost a lot of hair. I couldn't really perform my daily tasks being on those medications. So whenever I would take them, the next day I was out for the day. I would be just vomiting and feeling sick and feeling horrible, much worse than I would be without them.
I can imagine how they have a profound effect, and it's make it more difficult to connect and anchor to our spirit, and that's one of the reasons why also they are being introduced also on our timelines, and why it's so important also to walk away from the crutch that they can give. And also, as you were mentioning, the external authority can be very strong, and I think it's something that we have to work on step by step, because it's a delayering. So I know that you also received, medical diagnoses that were not really encouraging, that were maybe the contrary, probably very discouraging. So how has it been for you to finally find the first exit door to this heavy, I mean, it's a prison on many levels.
I think it all starts with love. Like all the healing, all the profound change starts with love for everything and everyone, and as an extension or as a source for yourself. So to me, those two things are not separable. So self-love and love for everyone is the same. And for me, it was really the feeling of being worthy of something better and deserving better health and better ability to be in this world, to show up for myself, for my family, for others, and understanding that health issues truly prevented me from that. And for me, it was this choice of what do I really want in life? How do I want to be? How do I want to become? Because I saw those beautiful visions in my mental projection. I saw that there was something greater. And my challenge was to figure out how to be there. I don't like the word to get there or to achieve that, because I really love anchoring in the present moment. And for me, it's more like unfolding that vision. How is it going to happen, right? When I did suffer so much, I also saw how other people were suffering. The same people who shared rooms in the hospital with me, let's say, or people in the ER. So there was a lot of, interesting energies involved in my healing process. And I think I always was searching and seeking for that. And that's why it came to me more not as like mental going out and, Googling and finding people who does what to feel better. And at that time, I think it was not even available to me. I just moved to America after being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I really thought that here in different countries it would be different, and I might find different answers to my questions. And yet the medical system was exactly the same, with the exception of one thing, is that I had to also pay out of my pocket for those medications and for diagnosis and for going to doctors. But that is another topic. And so it was more and more kind of compounding into this push from the universe, I would say, that my soul, my spirit so much desired to be free. And I was just figuring out, how do I support my body in this process also? And how do I maybe find my own solution for those things? Because I remember, as I said, I had a glimpse at what health can look like while I was being in nature. And so one day in the hospital, I was waiting in a line to get my prescription medications filled. And there was a person who came to me. He sat near me and he asked me to turn off my phone because he said that the waves bothered him. And he leaned forward and he said, "Sister, nature will heal you." And that was it. So, and that person gave me like a little website address where I found the information about raw food. And so it was a message. And then the second message of the same nature I received from my ex-husband, because he was doing research and he saw how people were healing themselves with rheumatoid arthritis. So he also planted that seed. Yet at that time, I was not really ready to radically change anything, or I think I didn't really understand that the medications were the problem, that they were blocking my sensations. They were not letting me really see through. And also they kept me in a very big fear that, just like you said, that it's a crutch. Like, what is going to happen if I drop that crutch? Can I still walk? And that was that feeling like if I quit all the medications, I will just die. Something will happen. And it took me a lot of courage to realize that that's what was truly impacting my nervous system and all other systems of my body. And I had to first quit that heavy chemistry and not to put it in my body anymore. And so in 2013, I bought a juicer, and I didn't have a car at the time. And I remember I was walking to, there's a health store here, a Whole Foods, and I was walking to that Whole Foods for 1 hour to just get my greens and organic produce, and walked back, still suffering the pain from rheumatoid arthritis, still having that inflammation. And yet my determination was really, really strong, because I wanted to experience that and I wanted to see what it was about. So I got the juicer and I started juicing. I still had the same diet. And just by adding a juice instead of breakfast made a lot of difference. So I started cleansing, and I recognized that I would feel the smell of chemicals coming out of my body, and it was really really unpleasant, very strong cleansing reactions to, as I said, I still was on those cancer medications, and I was losing my hair, and I also developed a very bad habit of smoking cigarette at that time. So it was like everything. I never smoked cigarettes when I was growing up. And by the age of 29, I was so fed up with all what was happening, so much heavy weight on my shoulders from those diseases, that I started taking the stress out on cigarettes. So that even, worsened the situation, of course, and it made it worse. And so once I got the juicer, I was able to come off medications, quit the cigarettes. I really started feeling much better. I still had symptoms. And so within a year, I continued eating all the diet that I ate: meat, dairy, eggs, all sorts of things. Plus, I was doing juices, and I was not doing cigarettes anymore, and I was not doing medications. And I also quit all the alcohol as well. So it was all 2013, like this big leap of faith, quitting those things that clearly didn't serve me anymore. And so within a year, so I got pregnant. In 2014, I found out that my husband and I were expecting a child. And before that, doctors told me that I would never be able to have children, that if I ever get pregnant, they would try to talk me out of it and things like that. And that was very, very heavy on me, because I always wanted to be a mom. That was my biggest desire in this life. I think more than anything, I wanted to have children, to experience motherhood, and to really bring this love into this world. And so that was another motivation for me to start changing my habits, because I recognized that if I don't, then I wouldn't be able to experience what I wanted to, right? And I had very hard pregnancy because I still had rheumatoid arthritis. As I said, my diet was still the same, but I was not taking any medications. So I was in pain. I was in a lot of pain. I just moved to Colorado at that time, and it was a change of climate, change of altitude, being also lonely in a new place. So I went through challenging pregnancy, but I was very happy to expect my child. And when he came, I had this very, very profound spiritual experience while I was in labor. And I think that truly that human being who came through me, I'm so thankful to his presence because it pushed me to different extent of my healing journey. So I had this download, this beautiful download that all the animals on the planet are just as I am. You know, they give birth the same way. The cows give this birth the same way. They experience this pain, and then humans just take them and, you know, do whatever we want with them. And it was like centered around the cow and around birth and around children and babies and all the animals together united. So it was a live birth, you know. I didn't have any medications or anything, and it was very profound. And I really didn't understand what it meant for me until I got back home and I started eating the food again. I I got back home from the hospital, and I remember my ex-husband brought me a chicken pot pie, and I looked at it and I said, you know what, I just can't do it anymore. I don't feel it. And I told him at that time that, you know, it's just my choice, and I feel that I'm gonna stay away from all the animal products now. And it was truly a spiritual experience and spiritual choice. And I was very, very surprised after I quit all the animal products, because it was easy for me. At that point, it was not a struggle for me at all. It was just the need of my soul. And it was expressed to me this way, and I had to follow. So for me, there was no physical struggle whatsoever, and no cravings, nothing, just the push away of the energies, different energies. And I started feeling much better. Within a month, most of my rheumatoid arthritis symptoms they were just gone. And it was really shocking to me, and it showed me that quitting something is great, and yet I needed to radically change my diet to see a big improvement. And basically from that point on, I was nonstop researching and digging into the knowledge of nutrition and healing and self-healing and all the beautiful wisdom that is available to us at this day and age via internet, libraries, and other human beings. That is truly amazing.
Wow, that's incredible that the symptoms vanish completely. And it must have, you know, I imagine it feels very different. And I know from my own journey, it feels very different as it goes to be in the body and maybe more and more welcoming. And so how was it then? You were mostly on a plant-based diet, but I imagine there was still a process also from cooked food to raw food, and even more to with the juice fast. So how did they, and by the time when you quit meat, so it was just after when you were a new mom, right? And so how did it go from there?
Yeah, so from there, basically, started quitting more and more things that didn't serve me. It was a very interesting journey of shedding off old skin, just like snakes do. It was incredible because I truly realized that there was no limit to change. And the things that I was discovering on the way just supported that idea that great things are possible, feeling amazing in your body and being really whole, because the word health even is the wholeness, is being able to be whole with yourself, with your body, mind, and spirit in a very harmonious way, in a very present and beautiful way. And that was my vision of the future. So starting from that point when I quit all the animal products and I felt much better, I saw even more and more health coming my way, because it felt to me as if I unlocked the door. I was just staring at that door, questioning it, and all of a sudden the key was there in my hand and the door unlocked, and there was another different, beautiful life. And the possibilities were different. So I slowly but surely I quit any sugar. So I was plant-based, but I was still eating cookies and all sorts of pastries. And slowly my body was just started shifting, and I quit sugar. So together with sugar goes all the pastry and all the flour products and all of that, and I felt even better. And then I had a habit of drinking coffee. I quit coffee and I felt even better, because by the time I was still on coffee, I had headaches, and I realized that the more I cleansed my body, the more connections I felt, like how different foods or drinks would affect my body and where it would manifest. And so I definitely connected coffee and headaches, and I quit that in 2017. And so it just kept unfolding more and more. And in 2018, I had this experience again. I think it was very spiritual experience too, because my son and I went to farmers market and we got all different beautiful fruits and vegetables, very colorful. And I love making art and I love colors. So for me, the vibration of those fruits and vegetables is also very high. And when we got home, I started cooking some of those vegetables. And as I looked at them in the pot, I saw that the color was just vanishing and going away. And I had this realization in my heart that I would love to eat for color. And I switched overnight to raw food. So I already heard about raw food a lot. I heard different people talking about that, and I read about it. And yet there was something that I was just not ready. And when I was ready, that's when it took me with it in this beautiful journey. And when I switched to raw, I was really curious about, different kind of dishes and how to create different recipes. So I would practice making desserts and doing all sorts of different raw gourmet recipes. And it was amazing. It made me feel even better. And then one day I was in meditation and I had this download telling me that it's now time to experience juice fast. And I started with 4 days of water fast. And at that time I was still breastfeeding. My son was 3 years old. I was still breastfeeding, and I just felt that going too much on water would really diminish me from nutrients and my energy levels, and I had to be active and take care for him. So I slowly from water I came to the green juice. I did a 30-day green juice fast, and it was just life-changing. It was so amazing to experience that we can be without food, without solid food for a long time. We can cleanse our body. We can also bump up our nutrients, and we can experience such different energy levels and just different vibration overall. I noticed that my life started changing on different levels, on a spiritual level, on a mental level. I had this basically all those 30 days of drinking juices. It was a very quiet meditation for my mind. It was taking a break, truly taking a vacation from eating and just being with myself, being within me, listening to my experiences, listening to my mental chatter, and then just healing myself in that different and deep way.
Would you say you were feeling somehow more peaceful when, because it's something that I've noticed that there can be a sense of peacefulness that can come back from just being on liquid food that is hard to reach with solid food.
Yeah, definitely. One of the most amazing benefits of juice fast is truly a sense of peace and sense of like everything is fine, everything is good. You're not going to die without food. The earth is here holding you. It's nurturing. It's safe. It's okay to just be, just simply switch your attention from eating to something else. And I did find that peace in doing so. And since that point onward, I only wanted to experience what brings me joy and what brings me happiness and what brings me this sense of peace. And I think doing that first juice fast truly made me align with my core values once more. After being on all those medications, as I said, I felt as my consciousness was being numbed by those, and many decisions that I made being on those medications, they were just very low energy and low vibration decisions, and I hold the space for myself at that time, because I still don't know how I went through that, because it was a lot. It was truly a lot. As I look back, I tell myself I can't even imagine my child going through those kind of things with those chemicals. It's too much for the body. It's too much for the mind and spirit too. And yeah, so
Yeah, it is truly heroic to deal with that much, and I feel it's meant also to control the level of consciousness that can be reached, and this is one of the goal as well. And when you were talking, it just reminded me how the process is really like you have to do the next step. To do the next one, you cannot go already to the next one if you haven't gone to the two. So it's like a delayering process like that. And so during that 30-day juice fast, what was the process during the juice fast? Did you declutter on any level, like it can come, or not only physical, but also there is a decluttering process because we have more space, or was there more energy to address some stagnant project or some stagnant energies, or was it more like sometimes also the time to rest? How was it for you?
I think for me that time it was a fall time. It was autumn here, and it was very calm and peaceful space. So I rested a lot. I really went deep inside of me in prayer and meditation and asked questions that I was not brave enough to ask when I was eating, I think. And to me, it was truly an unfolding of the process that I think was my whole life, is to understand that the diseases that happened to me were there for a reason. And of course, they were not just physical factors that were contributing to those diseases. It was there were a lot of different things. And recognizing that power, I think I felt really empowered by doing Juice Fast. That's one of the things that stood out the most to me, is to realize that I am provided with everything I need just from plants, fruits and vegetables, nothing else. It's so simple. It's so simple that people don't like the simplicity. We tend to complicate things. And when it becomes so real, like you're faced with the fact, okay, I'm not having anything but juices, and yet I'm still cleansing. I'm still passing the waste matter. That was another discovery to me, that actually maybe there's much more to the disease than just what I thought. And from that point on, I was focusing on the root cause of the disease and focusing on truly detoxification and regeneration on the cellular level. So while a lot of people are still staying in the confusion of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, for me, I put my focus and intention on what I already experienced. So I experienced the undeniable benefits of the raw food and of juice fasting, that I cannot deny them to myself. Those are my experiences. So I focused my energy on that. And from that point onward, I decided to commit myself to this process, and to commit to myself also to keep learning about who I was and how to heal even deeper, how to heal basically all the parts of my life and my being, and improve my relationships and improve my relationship with my child and be a good mom. So there was a lot of things that became important to me once more when I had the opportunity to connect my body with those values and with those intentions. When my body was not functioning properly, when I experienced diseases, I felt disconnected, and I felt that I was not functioning fully out of who I was. And I was not truly leading from my heart. I was not guiding from my soul. I was rather, instinctually going and trying to feel better all the time, and trying to get myself to a certain state where when I would feel that I can express myself in a different way.
And how did it go after, when you exited the fast? How did you guide yourself through back to solid food? Maybe how was it?
It was pretty smooth. So I didn't really know at that time how to correctly break juice fasts or anything. I went slowly to eating again like fruit and then salads, and I was raw. I stayed raw for years. So I continued with that diet, and I really loved it. And I also didn't know at that time that I would, go on and do more juice fasts. So at that time, I was already pretty good. I felt really cleansed. I felt a lot of energy. I didn't have any fatigue or anything like that, and felt much better than back in 2015 before my son was born. And that was just a period of 3 years of timeline, right? And I have experienced those results, and I felt that after that 30-day juice fast, I felt that probably that's it. There cannot be anything better than that, until I found out that people actually can do extended juice fasts and can feel even better and clear out even more things out of their body and restore and regenerate organs and tissues. And that was even more magical.
I can imagine that. I know that it feels like an accomplishment to have done a first long-term juice fast, and I think at that moment it's probably best not to think about more and more, because it's already such a big accomplishment already. So what happened in between the time where you were exiting this first fast and before your decision to start another long-term juice fast that was maybe it was 3 times the time, and I'm not sure I'm aware of when it was chronologically on your path.
So basically it was a year after my 30-day juice fast that I committed to a long-term juice fast. And the main reason for that was that I wanted to see. So I started, the more I was on a raw food lifestyle, so I continued being raw. My health was good. I never got sick while being raw, like not even once. And I felt strong. And I also started experiencing detox symptoms. So a lot of times when people go on a raw food diet, just by eating fruit, they would start experiencing detoxification symptoms. And I recognized that I had a lot of medication deposits in my body. So I would, sometimes I would pass some kind of mucus that was having this medication smell, and I didn't have medication in my body for several years by that point. And that started bringing my attention to this. I made a decision. I said, okay, I'm going to commit to that. And I think bringing back my discipline, being a gymnast, that's what really helped me to stay strong in the first month and go with the detoxification symptoms and take care for myself. So I didn't know for how long I would go on that juice fast, and it ended up being 4 months. So it was 115 days juice fast, and I truly deeply cleansed my body at that time. It was amazing to experience what I did, what kind of things were coming out of me, and how I felt exponentially better and better and better, and my energy levels were so high, and I started seeing many things in a very different way. And I also experienced energetic purging. A lot of people were leaving my life at that time, and a lot of new people started coming in, those who were really aligned with my energy. And I was able to create community at that time. I opened my channel and I decided to share the message, because by that point I just could not share the message. It was necessary for me to transfer that knowledge, to truly teach people that this is possible. I know you suffer, I know you struggle, I've been there, and I'm coming out of my heart to just simply share what is going on and how it's going. And from that point onwards, it was just a beautiful ripple effect of things happening and moving and changing, shifting, transforming, and all this beautiful way of life was opened for me once more. The more I cleansed my body, the more my mental state became stronger, and a lot of unnecessary patterns were released from my mental state, and a lot of strength came together with that, confidence in my experience and in what was truly going on with the body and with mind and spirit, and how it was all aligned together.
And when you talk about unnecessary pattern being released, and even for relationships collapsing, what could you elaborate a little bit more about them, and what kind of unnecessary pattern, and was there any pattern in the relationships, and was there any toxicity, or how did the mindset maybe were different?
I think I'll start with a little background that I grew up in a very toxic swirl of relationship in my family of origin. So I didn't know that there could be different things, let's say. Or rather, I was aware that there could be, but I didn't experience them yet. And so when I started detoxing, I started seeing that, okay, some of the relationships I had, even with friends and with family, were truly based on rather on this unhealthy exchange and toxicity than on genuine connection. And my heart desired for genuine connection. So, and of course, I had those relationships in my life that I could anchor and relate to. As I continued detoxing, I wanted all my relationship to be this way. So and it's natural process, because as we go through the detoxification process, more and more we cleanse, the more and more we align with our own self, and we know what we are and who we are, and we start discovering truly our deepest desires for this life. And I think one of the most important things that I realized during those juice fasts is that time is the most precious resource, not money. And I found out that I was taught to think that money was something that was of importance. And I kind of start valuing everything unconsciously against that. And I don't know if that would make any sense, but I switched my perception, or rather it just shifted naturally during juice fast, and I started realizing that time, connection, love, those things that are intangible, those are the most precious things. And that's where I need to really invest and put my intention to, and put my attention to, and focus on, rather than being in somebody else's struggles and patterns, because I saw my way out of it, and I wanted to show the way out to other people. And by people who didn't believe in me, who told me that I was crazy doing those things, healing myself, I wanted to spend less time on that, and not to waste my precious resource of time. So truly redefining time for myself, that's what made this possible, to recognize unhealthy relationships, to let go of those unhealthy relationships. Although I can tell you it's very hard. It's super hard. It's very challenging. There's a lot of grief involved in those processes. And a lot of times in our cultures, we are not taught to experience grief with grace and gratitude for what it is teaching us. And we rather tend to attach to those unhealthy experiences rather than letting them go. And at that time, I started practicing yoga again. I did practice yoga in Russia before I moved here. And being able to practice it again, returning to the practice because I now had body to do that. I was able and capable without pain. I created a routine to myself. So I don't negotiate my yoga practice. I show up on the mat whether I want it or I don't want it or I don't feel it. I am there. And so aligning back with myself in this way and seeing life from yoga perspective, from this unity and how things really work. The most hardest thing for me was to let go of my marriage. So of that experience that I recognized that that was not healthy at all. So I definitely understand that I loved my ex-husband a lot. So family was the most important thing for me. And at some point, our ways had to split because of those processes. And it's very hard for a lot of people to, I think, separate themselves from their relationships and the healing process. And a lot of people go back to their old habits just to stay in those relationships out of security, out of feeling that they just can't do that for family, for anything. But for me, it was necessary, I think, to let go of all the old things that were holding me back. Because I wanted people in my life who would be supportive of what I do, who would truly see what it was, that what I discovered through this journey was really valuable to others, and it could truly help other people to improve their life to the point that they can be healthy and happy. And what else can we desire? That's the most important thing, to be able to be healthy, happy, present with our loved ones. And so people who did not support me in this journey were not meant to be there with me. Because for me, it became a point of either I choose myself or I choose them. And I don't even know them that much to be able to make this kind of choice. And every time I kept choosing myself, regardless of what others were telling me was right or wrong, because a lot of people didn't understand, raw food, what, you're not cooking your food and you're just drinking juices, are you still alive? And so there are a lot of things that they're taught in the society that are simply not true. And it takes a lot of courage, I think, to just being able to question, just ask questions, a lot of questions, like, why does it work this way? Is that so? Is it really true? And then going on and discovering for yourself with your experience. And I think letting go of relationships that don't work or in any way drain our energy and are disrespectful or emotionally draining, abusive, narcissistic, all of that needs to go for us to truly feel who we are, to feel our worth, to feel our importance and confidence in this life. So that was the journey with the relationships.
And what in the dynamic was really holding you back? What was it? Control energy, or this lack of encouragement, or it can be also triggering all the time, this wound of non-recognition, or and then though inside we know and we have experienced it. I mean, the experience of it is very convincing, and the more we experience, I mean, the more you experience with cellular detoxification, raw food and juice, the more, at least I came to understand even more. Like there is only so much that I could understand up to there, and the more I I mean, there's still a lot of things that I understand only now because it takes time. There is a lot of programming and conditioning with food, and there is a timing as well. And I think it comes also with denumbing and delayering step by step, and then we can feel just the next pocket of consciousness. So could you elaborate a little bit more about the dynamic with your ex-husband and maybe with other people that were around you at that time in your life?
Yeah, sure. At first, my ex-husband was encouraging, I think, towards my healing process, because he was the one who was in the hospitals with me all the time. And he knew how much I went through, and he was there sitting and waiting in 6-8 hours while I was, getting help from emergency room or whatever. So he knew. And yet I think a lot of times when we are in a close relationship with somebody, we need to be aware that we attracted the energy that we were at that time. So there was no mistake that we were together. And of course, I cannot say anything is a mistake with any kind of relationships. They're always teaching us something. And it's very important to understand that blaming anybody for anything is not an option, and it's not the path towards your healing. So sitting, first of all, my first thing with my relationships with anybody was realization that there should be no blame for those people. There should be really deep forgiveness for whoever did in the past and how it played out. And now is the time to just sit back and watch and learn from that. And at some point in my long-term juice fast, I realized that it was very interesting, because I realized that I was in a way married to my mother. So I was just repeating those patterns that she had in her relationships with me at the time I was little, and I brought it to my marriage. And so it was, and I had very hard and challenging relationships with my mother. They're much better now. We have learned a lot together and we have improved. But at that time, it was truly challenging and turmoil, and all the time there was this toxic push and pull from her. And so I started, as the more I detoxed, the more I started seeing as if this veil was falling off my eyes, that actually those patterns in my relationships that I have with my husband, this controlling energy of his, being so it was very isolating and controlling energy, and it was very hard on me as I healed myself, as I continued healing myself, and I started feeling better and better. I started seeing that I was not supposed to be treated in the way that he did. And I think the self-worth and self-value goes really up when you do things like juice fast and raw food, because it allows you to sense yourself, to have all your sensations and signals, and your internal communication processes are in line. So you become online again with yourself. You tune into yourself and your body, and instantaneously when the energies are toxic around you and when you're not supposed to feel this way. But for me, I really was indoctrinated, I think, in this thought that a woman is not supposed to leave a man. We're supposed to stay in the marriage no matter what, and tolerate and be strong. And I think it honestly comes from the Soviet Union era when I was born in Soviet. And so it was kind of like very patriarchal way of of being in the family, like the man is the head and you're just like under the man. And my ex-husband was from the Middle East, and so that also was the same kind of vibration, very man-led culture, and women are supposed to be under. So I felt that a lot. And during my juice fast, I recognized that actually I should not anymore, that my spirit wanted to feel free. And I got married to be on the same team with my husband at that time. We were supposed to be a team, and we were supposed to build together and do things together. And yet I felt this for the last years of my marriage. As I started changing myself, as I started working on myself, I felt that he was not on my team anymore. So he really got into his own really hard healing process, and I give him all the grace and all the love that I can give, because it's his own journey. And yet at some point, by the end of that long juice fast, I knew exactly that I was not supposed to be with him anymore. And it was so heartbreaking, Ariana, and so heart crushing that I didn't know how to go through it. I really didn't have many resources to cope with that pain and with that grief. And of course, having a child with him, we wanted our child. It was a very beautiful experience. And yet, just the choice of what do I choose? Do I choose to let that go? And I think that was the hardest for me, like really, really to sit down and say, I want a divorce. And for him, it was hard also. And I know for sure that I chose both of us, because I knew that he was not healing with me either. I wanted him to feel free, and I wanted him to be happy one day. And so that was that. And yet I had to go through the whole grief process and seek psychological support even for divorced women, so I could truly gather my strength back and my power back, because divorce left me with a lot of different things to work on and to recognize where I have more room to grow and more opportunity to create a different life for myself and my child.
Yeah, so and what about your relationship with your son? I think from what I heard, he came as a blessing on your path, and I don't know how old is he now, and how has it been for you with him?
He's 7.5 now, and it's been really a beautiful journey, because from the beginning I committed myself to gentle parenting and truly bringing him up in a different way than I was brought up. And I think it truly takes this really deep change. And I think diet is a very, very big part of it, whether people like it, or some people experience, hard feelings of letting their previous diet go. That's one of the things is understanding that the way we were brought up might not be the best way. And that is not, again, to say that someone was wrong, someone was doing the things that were not supposed to be done. It's rather to learn from our parents' mistakes. We're all humans, we do mistakes. And for me, it was a lot of intention to bring up my child in the environment of love and support and encouragement, and truly let him to be who he is from the get-go, from the very start. I made sure that I breastfed him. So I really was aware of physical benefits of breastfeeding, of also emotional and spiritual and physiological benefits. And so I breastfed him until he weaned off by himself. And I put a lot of effort and intention into creating great relationships with him. I have stayed with him at home until he was 3 years old. And so I poured all my energy and all my love in that little being. And now I see that the way he grows up is very different from what I experienced. So he has choice of what he wants to eat, right? Going back to food again, the food aspect of it. He recently started making his own juices. So he would just go to the fridge and he would just make his own green juice or watermelon juice. And he loves smoothies. And yet with his dad, again, there is this element of freedom, all the time realizing that my child is not me. I should stay away from projecting my past, my present, my future onto him, and rather be like sit back and be attentive and learn from him. First of all, not being afraid of not being just like, oh, I'm an adult, I'm his mom, so I'm right all the time. Rather be flexible and open to the experience, and recognizing that there is a spirit in this tiny body still developing, but yet it's another human being, and that's precious, that's life. And so I really do my best to let him express himself. He's very much into electronics, electrical engineering since he was very young. And I allowed him to have tools and materials that other kids didn't have access to, just because I saw that if I give him those tools and materials that are considered to be, in some cases, adults, of course, with supervision, but just let him explore who he was and let him build from there. And now I see that all that energy and effort that I put into him actually pays off, and he is truly developing his electrical engineering skills, and he's going far beyond like his level of kids who go to school. I recently started homeschooling him, so he went to kindergarten and to the first grade, and after the first grade I decided that was it. He didn't feel happy at school. There was no opportunity for him to really express and who he was, and to learn and develop his skills. And they don't really teach kids at school those complex engineering things that he wants to learn now at his age. And it was really aligned decision. Both of us wanted to make it happen, and now he feels very happy being at home and learning what he wants to learn. And it's been a good, beautiful journey. We had our hardships because of the divorce, because of the separation, and it was really hard on him. And yet I think I was doing a pretty good job to make sure that he has two houses, and that he sees his dad, and that he knows that his dad is there for him all the time, regardless of what happened between us adults. Yeah.
Beautiful, and also nice that he's learning home what he wants to be learning. I saw on one of your short videos, I think, some thing that he built. Not sure what's the word in English, but like there was a little thing turning, right? And I thought that it was pretty badass to build that at 7 years old, because and I think these are skills that are very needed for any community. Anyone who knows electronics and who know manual work, repair, building, solar panel, anything like that is very, very, very useful for any community. So these are skills that are very, very valuable, actually.
Yes, and especially here in Colorado, there there are a lot of new technologies being developed and a lot of electrical and engineering, and like most of the city that I live in on solar panels, and there's a lot of for him to discover and explore. So I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it looks like amazing to build that at 7 years old. And so, how much time was there in between this phase, the divorce and the separation, the end of the 4 months choose fast, and how was it after that, and what led you to the process of a very, very long fast of 10 months or over 10 months, which is incredible. So what happened up until there?
So when I left my husband, finally officially separated from him, it was 2020. So it was the middle of pandemic, and a lot of things were changing, and a lot of people were showing up in my life that helped me in that process of grieving. And yoga was my true space where I would come and be myself and process things, and sometimes cry on the mat and truly just feel all of that, and let it go and let it flow through me. And I think at that time I encountered a lot of ghosts from the past, if I may put it this way. I think separating with my husband, we were together for 11 years, and it was a long time, and I felt all the turmoil of divorce. So it was all sorts of conflicting thoughts in my head, if it was me, and if I could still repair that, and what about the child. So the just physical separation didn't stop this psychological process of really cleansing my psychological energy from that experience. And I experienced at that time, a lot of, I would say, my ex-husband, when I left him, he became very angry because of that. And he started expressing that anger on me more and more often. And I felt the lack of the community in a way during that time, during COVID, and the people who were close to me, I thought my friends, they were very much against of my raw foods lifestyle. So they did not support it. They would say that, a lot of different things, that I should have stayed with my husband, and so a lot of shoots and unsolicited advices that I kept receiving from people. And at some point, I felt as if I was getting weak from that. The energies were so intense and truly reminded me of my childhood in a way, how it was like very dramatic, toxic relationships in the family in some parts of it. And I think the only person who I could really relate, the only two people who I could really relate in my family when I was growing up was my brother and my grandfather. So those were the anchors of light, that the ideal of good relationships that I had. And I was striving to have those relationships, and yet in COVID everything was about me purging those experiences and cleansing myself energetically and physically. And at some point I recognized, I started doing this, like, more and more different modalities of healing I would experience. So I would do vibrational healing, and the Reiki. I got certified in Reiki. I started to really move in the energies. and I was learning Native American wisdom of how to heal the body with various herbal medicines, with different techniques, with their approach to elemental, with respect to elements, to fire, water, air, and earth. And I was learning all that wisdom, and it was just, going through me and downloading, and it was always the process of a big unfolding and expansion until the point where I felt that I was tired. I felt that I was tired to be by myself on this journey. And I also experienced that I wanted to stay away from online and even from my channel, and I wanted to process all of that. And while I continued learning about healing and I continued gathering more and more knowledge, getting my certifications, at the same time I was getting stronger on like the healing path of the healer, but I was getting weaker in not being able to manage those energies from people, those aggressive energies. And at some point I turned into food. So it was very unexpected experience for me. And yet looking back now, I understand it was absolutely 100% necessary. And I have learned so much from it, more than from anything until that point. So when I turned back to eating cooked vegan food, so for me, like, there is no question about eating animal products. I hope that's gone like for good and forever. And I don't like saying that that's for sure, but that's how I feel right now. So for me, it was going back to, I remember I was making this vegan lasagna for my son, and it was winter time, it was cold, and I cut myself a slice and I tried it, and I felt that it was almost as if trying a cigarette. It was very weird feeling, and energetically it was different. And by that time I was raw for like 4 years already, I think. Yeah. And I ate that lasagna, of course. I also noticed, so I was aware that I was pushing through my consciousness and doing that. And yet I also wanted to experiment. I wanted to see, okay, so what's going to happen now? And I got sick from that lasagna. I really felt like detox symptoms. My nose started running, maybe like after a couple of hours, and I had a headache, and it was not pleasant. So I stayed away from cooked food again. And with time, and especially I had a friend at that time in my life who was very judgmental about my lifestyle. And so kind of with her, I started going here and there, eating some cooked food, some desserts, whatever, thinking that I was connecting and thinking that I was going back into community and kind of becoming normal again, And I noticed so many shifts and changes, Ariana, in my entire perception of life and just the vibration wise. And I started getting I felt tired of cooked food. Like, I felt that my body would feel like fatigue, and I would need more rest, and I would need more energy to process food, and I would need more time to digest it. And so I started noticing all those shifts. As I did notice those shifts, at the same time, I had to work 2 jobs, and I had to support my son financially and myself, and all of that was just kept compounding and presenting itself as a big challenge. And I somehow, or rather very subtly, it's a very subtle process of slipping back into the old way of eating food. And I think at that time I was processing again a lot of old traumas, childhood traumas, and generational traumas. My grandparents went through the World War II, so there was a lot, even from that, still dragging into my life. And so truly learning, like during COVID, I learned how to separate myself, my experiences from generational experiences, how to heal that kind of traumas. And yet, so I ended up eating cooked food like solidly for like 2-3 months, cooked vegan food. And then I became very aware to how it made me feel, how much worse it made me feel. And I found out that all the addictive qualities of cooked food. So now comparing to after I was raw, and really it was like step back and learning, should I stay over there, that step back, or should I just continue and learn from that experience? And I recognized that it didn't make me feel good at all. I then switched to like being raw until 4 and then still eating some cooked food in the evening. But the whole entire structure of my eating was, I recognized it as being unhealthy, and I started asking myself a lot of questions again. So what's going on with me internally? What's going on with my mind, with my spirit? How can I assist that internal healing so I go back to what I was doing on my physical level? So really, like, healing myself on the physical level opened up more and more emotional issues that I needed to heal, and also the traumatic experiences that I carried with me and I needed to heal. And looking back, I'm just thankful that that happened, because as you might know, it ended up and manifesting in a fibroid tumor in my uterus, which was pretty large. It was 9 centimeters tumor, and I was not surprised at all. When I was diagnosed with it, I just honestly went to see what it was, because pain bothered me a lot and I didn't know what it was. So I went to a doctor to use their machine to see what's inside. And when I was diagnosed, it was obvious to me personally why the physical disease manifested in the level of uterus. So it was just, recognizing that how much as we are suppressed as women in the society in general, and how much we are being taught to be disconnected from our children, from our creativity, from our experiences, and recognizing that, it also manifested in the second chakra, in the orange chakra of creativity and sacral chakra, that I knew that I was still not allowing my personal creativity to express fully, completely. I love doing art, I love playing music, and I was suppressing that so much. And I was just putting it down, telling myself, I cannot be everything, I cannot be a health consultant and an artist at the same time. And so those kind of limitations that I put on myself, on my spirit, they truly played a role, I think, in this disease being there present at that time a year ago. So when I came to that point, it was just, for me, was no question of how I was going to heal that. And I truly felt blessed at the doctor's office when I heard them saying that, well, we don't know the cause of this disease. We're just going to offer you hysterectomy and we can take your uterus away. And when I told them that I wanted to have more children, they said, well, we will try to save part of your uterus and take just that part that was affected by tumor. And I just thanked them when I left, because I knew that I would be able to do the same thing again, to heal myself again. So that's what brought me to the my longest, as of to date, 10-month juice fast.
Yes, and I know they gave suggestion that would have quite intense consequences on hormonal level, and again we find these diagnoses, and that's where also it's good to have the spirit strength to resist. So did you know straight ahead that you would refuse their diagnosis, or I imagine there is a triggering aspect to having this external authority say things that after are in our mind, even if we know them not to be true. So how was it?
It was very eye-opening experience to me. The moment I got to the hospital, it just reminded me, I had like a flashback of all those multiple, countless trips to the hospital and to doctors that I had before, and not being there for a long time, for the last 5 years, and then coming back into the hospital, and just it felt very sterile. It felt very disconnected from human experience, like true human personal experience with healing and disease, and just understanding that manifestation of any disease is a tremendous learning opportunity, is tremendous profound experience of, you can get to know yourself on a different level when you really look at that pain and at that what is being manifested in your body. So for me, yes, hearing the diagnosis was not surprising, but hearing their explanation was very surprising to me. So I clearly understood that they have no idea how the body works. They had no idea how to help me out. And I just had to be with that, and I'm okay with that after all of the experiences I had with the medical system, because I truly, when I come to a doctor, I see another human being who was just taught something that doesn't make sense to me anymore, and their knowledge was just not proven experientially with me. I personally didn't get any benefits from what they're taught to do, and even worse, I got much more worse conditions from what they were offering. So for me, going with the medical system solution was not an option at all. Also, I don't have any hard feelings for them, because, as I said, I recognize them as simple human beings who entered the medical school, hopefully, in the desire to help people, to help our fellow humans. And the fact that they just don't know how to do it, and not many of them are willing to question, because it became a business structure. It's scary and hard to question those things, and especially change something in life when you're already an adult, when you have your family and your responsibilities and everything. And so for me, it was just a learning experience, just respecting their point of view and then walking away into my own truth and into my own path.
Mhm. And so how did you get started with your new liquid period? Did you start straight ahead, or did you prepare yourself, and did you know that it would be that long, or did you start and told yourself that you would just see as it goes?
So I started almost instantly. I waited for a couple of days after the diagnosis, because I was expecting my juicer part to come. I had a replacement part coming in. My juicer didn't work at that time. And once I got the juicer part, I told myself, well, it was very perfect. I felt like it was very perfect day to start a juice fast. It was like foggy outside, very cozy. I I just told myself, yeah, let's just do it and let's see how that goes. I didn't know that would be a very long one. And yet, as I was going through this juice fast, and as I was seeing, in the middle of juice fast, I checked if my tumor was getting smaller, and it was. So it was a good point for me to check if I was doing the thing that is helpful. And I also, as I was doing the juice fast, I just love it. Like the first time doing juice fast might be very challenging, but the more the body cleanses, the more we go with it, the more we develop a habit, it becomes really easy. So for me, it was a very pleasant, very joyous experience. And I mean, a lot of juice, a lot of delicious juice, colorful, and just feeling very elevated, feeling being in my purpose again, feeling that I have aligned my mind and my spirit back again, just discovering that why the tumor was in my uterus. So just the location of it made me think out of the box a lot and think of all the other aspects of healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing. How do we approach this type of healing? How do we seek help from a therapist? Or do we do it ourselves? Do we use some other different modalities that are available? I also did a lot of different body work techniques. Like I kept practicing yoga, of course. I also went through a rolfing experience, so that is aligning of the body and of the tissues, and I really needed that, and I found an amazing practitioner who helped me with that. So there were a lot of things that were just coming together, simply unfolding again in a very beautiful way, and I didn't feel like stopping any sooner. I just simply was just flowing with it and being with it and listening to what was coming through, what was coming onto surface, and what I needed to work with in terms of emotional and psychological healing. And it's been really profound experience again. So yeah.
I can imagine. And was it different from the previous fast in terms of waste that eliminated, or I did you learn about your genetic? Did you get your eyes check, and do you so it helps sometimes to understand our genetic weaknesses, and also our past physical struggle as well, to know more about this.
Yeah, I as I studied detoxification, cellular detoxification, I really got into iridology too. And I was skeptical. I was so skeptical about it. Like if you told me 10 years ago that you can actually read things in your iris, I would tell you no, that's not true. And I myself experienced my eye color change a lot, dramatically. So before I even started even juicing, I had green, brownish, and yellowish eye color. And now it's almost entirely blue. So it's been a long journey, and truly recognizing, like, I knew that I had a lot of digestive issues looking at the brown color around my iris. I used to have a lot of deposits of sulfur in my body, so I had that yellow color all over my eyes, and I also knew that I did have genetic weaknesses in my liver. I did have genetic weaknesses in my gallbladder. So all of those issues that basically like my mom had, my grandmother, you know, my relatives, most of my relatives passed away from cancer. You know, they died from heart disease and things like that. So I knew that I was passed on some issues already, and definitely during this last juice fast, I saw that my iris was clearing even more and more, and the waste matter was different. So on my first long-term juice fast, it was all sorts of things, and I did parasite cleanse. I passed hard stools at that time, very ancient, like old hard rock texture and feel of it. And then I passed a long rubbery mucoid plaque at that time. This time it was a little different. I still recorded everything, and it looked fresher. It looked like it was recent. I could see the texture and color and all of that. So I definitely learn a lot from human waste matter, and I laugh at myself sometimes because, like, looking back, I would never even imagine doing anything of sorts. And but the research and true curiosity of what is there, how does it work, you know, why does it come, why does it show through the iris color, how does lymphatic system work, how we function as humans, as species. That always has been my quest for learning, and I think really really looking at what is coming out of you and how you change, and experiential aspect of healing is very important for me. So going with your own experience and not really focusing, as I said before, on somebody else telling you something. So that was big.
Yeah, the experiential aspect may also assist to understand and prove these theories and maybe go deeper into understanding. And there is sometimes a gap between what we read something, but to really understand it, sometimes it's a different process. Do you practice yoga every day when you're fasting, or even when you're not fasting? And do you think you would have had such results if you hadn't been moving your body?
I do practice yoga every day. Yes, I practice several times in the studio, so I find it very important to practice in the community. And the rest of the days when I'm not at the studio, I practice at home. And I do think and I believe that moving body is necessary for achieving deeper results. So my first long-term juice fast, I did not do any exercises except running after my child. But I do feel I did notice the difference. So I think I also practice hot yoga, so Bikram yoga style, where you sweat a lot, and so cleansing lymphatic system in this way is very powerful, through sweat, through the movement. Just remembering that we are made out of two fluids and cells, so blood and lymphatic fluid, that's what is in our body, and those two things, they need to move. And most of people, they pay a lot of attention to the blood, and they completely ignore the lymphatic system, which is 75% versus 25% of blood. So that is very important to understand, that that fluid is supposed to be clean in order for us to function properly. What I did notice on my juice fast, comparing to even just eating food and practicing yoga, is that I became much more flexible. I do not consider myself to be a flexible person, like by birth, by nature. When I did gymnastics, I struggled. I struggled to stretch my body and to be flexible. And yet with this juice fast, I was able to I really don't believe that there is something like improvement in yoga. It's just my practice became more aligned and more pleasant and much more fluid and flowy, and I truly felt that my body was really strong also. And yes, the detoxification process is greatly assisted by any kind of movement. I also tell my clients that if you don't like yoga, there is no problem. Just pick what you love, dance, go on a run, go on a walk, do some bicycle, whatever lifts up your heart. That's what kind of movement you need to include when you detoxify your body.
And would you say more than walking, it needs to be a little bit more intense and kind of for my first fast, I think I was way more stagnant, but I noticed I mean, knowing genetics also, if you and me, I have green in my eyes or yellow, so knowing about chronic congestion, lymphatic congestion, you would know you need to move as a priority, but you would think more intense, right? At least as a part of maybe weekly practice, something like that.
I would say it depends on the person. So sometimes I work with elderly people who can't really do, strenuous exercise. So I tell them even just, simple stretching, like lifting your arms while you're sitting, something that just moves your body a little bit. Of course, if a person feels like, okay, I have so much energy, I gotta go and hit that gym and do all the exercises that I can, please do that. I think the most important part and aspect of it is truly listening what is for you at that moment, what's going on for your body, for your experience. Some people just don't like exercising a lot. And if that's the case, there are other ways to move the lymphatic fluid, like go to sauna, do dry brushing, do a massage, work on the lymphatic points on your body. So there are different kinds of things that can help assist that particular person that we're talking about. For myself personally, I do prefer, I just think I developed a routine, like a very solid routine with my yoga practice, that I only skip on very exceptional occasions. Like I don't negotiate that. I I practice. And I think that's more of my habit now. It's just like brushing my teeth or waking up in the morning and having my juice. It's truly became a habit. So I think developing the habit that people like for themselves, that's definitely beneficial to even just anchoring in your practice. Like when you feel like you're shaky or you're stressed out, just go back and ground to whatever practice you do. It can be art also. It doesn't have to be sport, right?
Yes, creativity, and there is a lot to talk about, but I'm respectful of your time, and maybe I'd like to bring it to a closure for this time, but maybe I see there is a lot of material, so maybe I would contact you again for a part two in a few months. But so how did your project and your website and your YouTube channel came in the picture? Did it come as an idea and then took time to manifest, or was it quick to manifest? And also this desire to share and assist other in the process of transforming their life.
I think I always love saying that my best video is my first video. And the reason being is that I used to be I suppressed my voice. So I didn't allow my voice to come through for a very long time, regardless of what I was doing. So no matter what kind of sphere of life I was in, I felt that I didn't have the power to express. And that's why to make my first video was a very scary process. And yet, again, it came very natural and very aligned because I felt that it was absolutely necessary. So when I started my 115-day juice fast back in 2019, it was September, and together with that, I felt this strong call to start the channel. And my intention was, if I could help just one person, just one human being who has rheumatoid arthritis and suffers so much, with that knowledge and the information that I have, then I'm good, you know, because to me it was not just about healing myself, but also I truly recognize the collective. I live in the awareness of us being all together in it. And that's why there is no, from my side, there is no judgment. Like when people come to my channel and they tell me, this is not right, this is not good. I'm simply there to remind people that it's possible and that my experience is valid and that I helped myself, I took myself out of hell, and I live a happy and healthy life. And I really enjoy this life, and I enjoy what I do, and I love helping my clients to see their life improve as well. When I started my channel, I didn't think that it would grow, and it does grow. It does grow very organically, very nicely, and I find amazing people, amazing community there. And without people who watch that channel, of course, it wouldn't exist. Without those questions, and a lot of times those questions from people, they brought me furthermore in my exploration of who I was. And truly, after starting this channel, I started grounding more and more into my experience of being a healer. So just being able to help people locally here where I live, and then also extend it to the online community, that is very, very powerful. I couldn't think about it 10 years ago when I was sick. But now, as if when I gained my health back, I find it to be my duty to show others how to do the same thing, because even though we are all different souls and spirits, we do have very similar physiology. We have the same body and it works in the same way. We are the same species. And not everyone in the collective has this consciousness yet to recognize the power of ourselves as human beings. And truly what this whole journey taught me is that embracing that I'm a light being, just like you are, just like everyone else. We are divine beings comprised of this light. And when we do support our body in this way, from this perspective, truly shifting this myth of us being just meat and bones and very, masculine way of things, like straightforward, like, no, this is meat, that's how it's supposed to be, that's how we're supposed to fix it, this body. There is much more to it. There is much more energy. There is a feminine energy that's flowing through this as well, and bringing it back to balance. And just that's how I guess the Luminous Raw came to be, and me getting my detoxification certification and deciding to work with clients and deciding to just step into this position of teaching people. So I look at myself more as a teacher and the healer and the guide, rather than, I'm setting a new trend over here or anything like this. It's more of truly transferring that information that I learned from a lot of people. And I stand on the shoulders of amazing people who did the same things before, like Herbert Shelton and Arnold Ehret, and all of those people who Dr. Walker, all of those people, and learning from them and digging into that knowledge and then finding the successful stories and putting the dots together. I think that was my true passion and mission, to be able to show that it's not only possible, but also to lead by example. Like, I live this life. I am walking in this, and I want people to know that even though it's not easy at times and it's very challenging and there are a lot to it, there's so much, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth to be your best self, you feel in your body, because our health is our wealth, and that's how it feels to me. The abundance, which is not just translates into the money and numbers, but also the abundance of connections, of love, of people being grateful to what I share, and of me being grateful to them that I learned from them too, because sometimes the questions are challenging and I need to go and dig into them and learn more and then show up with that new information. So I think it's been a very symbiotic experience with my audience and with my channel and with the community, and I definitely, it wouldn't exist without those people, but also without me putting that energy and investing that time and acknowledging myself for doing that too. I think that's important part to acknowledge as well.
Yeah, and I can understand this desire to transmit. To also, there is a different function to teaching, I think, and it allows also to deepen the process as it goes, and to transform other things also in our lives. So where can we find you on different social media platform, and maybe your website, and maybe why Luminous Raw?
So Luminous Raw came to me. I'll start with that. So you can find me on luminousraw.com. That's my website. You can also scan that little QR code and you just go straight to my website. There you can grab a free detoxification guide if you like, and you can watch my videos there. You can find the Luminous Raw channel on YouTube. I also started a podcast. There are not many episodes yet, but I'm doing more and more work for that too. It's the same name, Luminous Raw. And I think the word light was always in my life. So since childhood, since playing with watercolors and learning about light and color, and how truly this world is just a combination of light and darkness. And when I was coming up with a name for my channel, I couldn't come up with any name, and I left it. I said, okay, I'm gonna come back to it, and I sat in meditation, and the word lumin and luminous kept coming to me. So, and it's been a thread in my life. So the word light, luminous, lumina, lumin always have been present in some form or shape. And so I decided to go with that. And I think the main part of it is truly learning that being able to transmute this light is also being able to love your darkness. And the word guru translates light and darkness from Sanskrit. So a teacher, a light and darkness, they're both my teachers. And stepping on the path of raw, embracing the light, consuming light in my body, but also recognizing that I'm just a human, and there is this dark part of me too that I really need to love and tend to. And that's what I think I would like to really tell other people as well, that whenever we fall or we make a mistake, it doesn't really matter, because it doesn't change our divinity, our being that light. And yet we need that darkness so we can learn. And it's much more effective to heal when we not push away that darkness of our past, of our life, of our experiences, and rather we invite it and we befriend it and sit with it and learn from it. And that's when we can be luminous again. So that's what it was, I guess.
Thank you so much. It's been very inspiring to be listening to you. I do appreciate the content that you are, creating on your channel and also on your different social media. I think there are links to that also, to find you on Instagram. And I want to thank you so much for your time and your testimony. I really resonate with the many different observations that you brought to the table, and some I had not put into words, like the experiential aspect of this journey, and the fact that this journey is really a journey because it takes many years to cleanse the body, to access different layers of consciousness, and it's really a journey. You have to embark on it, and the experiential aspect is gonna show you if the theories or whatever other cellular detoxification specialists have published or written or shared is true or not. And then it becomes a tangible experience and not just something that we read somewhere or learn from somebody else, because you go through the experience of the body. And I think long-term juice fast is an excellent way to really deepen that understanding and the fine refinement also that we need to understand also for triggers. And just because when the body is so numb, you don't realize even that you're being triggered. So you cannot start the work until you realize and denumb and stop medication or stimulant that are in the way for you to feel these triggers. And then you can start to become aware of it and how they impact you. And if you don't feel them, you cannot start that very important work. So I feel this journey of a very light food, like liquid food is one of the lightest food that we can have, and the one that interferes the less with our body, that creates the less interruption of us. But as you share, I feel it's also, it can be a very fast ramp, like a long-term juice fast is a really fast ramp. And I think sometimes there is some going back, because sometimes it might be even too fast for what we can maintain as a frequency, and there was some slowing down with time. And I think it's all a regulation of that. And I think your testimony was bringing everything, all of that, and how important the next step is, and how it's really a process. So I really thank you so much, and I would like, if you're up to it, to be a part 2 in some later time.
Thank you so much, Ariana. Thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to share with your people.
It's my pleasure.